she say she want hood nigga. I keep the perk by the pound. The trunk stay bumped and y'all know we run the town. Hood nigga. And I keep a bad bitch around. Thick bitch, long hair, yellow, white, red, brown. Hood nigga. And my Chevy sitting on 24s. Flats look like flapjack. Pancake, you ain't no hood nigga. I'ma play the game how it go. They can take me out the hood, but I'ma keep it hood, folks. I'm on that good and alcohol. I got some down bitches I can't call. What's that? I don't know what I would do without y'all. I'm a ball till the day I fall. Yeah, long as my bitches love me. Yeah. I can give a darn about no hate long as my bitches love me. I can give a darn about no hate long as these bitches love me. I can give a darn about no hate long as these bitches love me. Let me tell you about this country shit. Country shit. Let me tell you about this country shit. Country shit. Let me tell you about this country shit. Country shit. Let me tell you about this country shit. Country shit. Country shit. Let me tell you about this super fly, dirt coast muddy water. Shorty, pop that pussy if you wanna. Let me tell you about this old school pouring lean, candy yams and collard greens, pocket full of stones, riding clean.
Well, I'm just one parlay away from a new house, new car. I'm just one parlay away. Trust I'ma take us far. I'm just one parlay away. One parlay away. One parlay away. Oh, I took the Chiefs on over, took my homes on yards. Everything is going good so far. Lakers beating the Knicks, spread is only 6. 2 minutes left in the game, baby. I'm about to hit. Ow!
I need out, yeah, I need out. Blood pressure higher than a body count. Tomorrow she has to go. She's a mama. I think I married a hoe. Married a hoe. I said, mama, I think I married a hoe. I made a mistake, mama. No, oh no. I want you. A man can't do nothing for you. All these hoes ain't loyal. All these hoes ain't loyal. These hoes ain't loyal. These hoes ain't loyal. 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 These hoes ain't loyal. When a rich brother wants you and your man can't do nothing for you. All these hoes ain't loyal. Ain't loyal. Whoa, these hoes ain't loyal. These hoes ain't loyal. These hoes ain't loyal. 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 These hoes ain't loyal.
welcome back, y'all, to another episode on the JVJ Network. I am your host. Let's talk with JVJ. Like cigarette. Didn't have that thing ready before we got started. Man, on y'all way in as usual, man, do your boy a favor by hitting that like, subscribe, share, turn notifications on, all that in the bag of chips. Because we trying to grow. Yeah, we trying to grow. We can only do that with y'all. Then look, I ain't even finna. I'm not even gonna play no music to start off on this one, y'all, tonight. I'm gonna let that come a little bit later. Cause I like to kick it, but tonight we talking about some serious shit, man. And I literally titled this one, "When They Say America Ain't Racist, Show Them This." Y'all know we talked a little bit about it the other night about that ruling that the Supreme Court had. Well, we didn't really go in depth on it. I kind of gave a gist of what it was, whatever the fuck. We're gonna talk about that shit today. We're gonna talk about how that impacts, like how significant it was, how it's gonna impact a lot of folks in this country. And then on top of that, man, it's gonna show a pattern because when these motherfuckers say this shit ain't racist, like, bro, like I don't know what else you want a motherfucker to believe. I think you ran out of excuses now. But now, man, get your cigarettes, get your weed, get whatever you need, y'all. Because I'm ready to get into this one. So let's go and get into it. Shout out to Vox. Don't copyright this shit, bitch. Like, just don't copyright my shit. Because I know I know how they like to get down. I know how they like to get down.
The Voting Rights Act is not just a victory for Black Americans. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., it enriches the lives of all Americans.
The Voting Rights Act of 1965 is a very big deal. It transformed America, marking the end of the Jim Crow era and effectively banning racial discrimination in elections.
When Lyndon Johnson came into office, he made Black civil rights a priority.
It is to give all our people the right to choose their leaders. To deny this right, I think, is to deny democracy itself.
When Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, I mean, they talked about it as, being this crown jewel, right? Like that they had finally righted a wrong.
The stunning thing about the Voting Rights Act is just how fast it worked. So on the day it was signed, less than 7% of Black eligible voters in the state of Mississippi were registered to vote. Just 2 years later, that number was 60%.
But in the past few decades, conservative justices on the Supreme Court have taken major steps towards dismantling it.
Supreme Court just finished hearing arguments in a major Republican challenge to the Voting Rights Act. This is a case that could gut key provisions that prohibit racial discrimination in redistricting.
He's talking about the Louisiana versus Calais case. At first glance, it might look like yet another scuffle over who gets their way when it comes to drawing electoral maps. But the truth is, there is a lot at stake here, and you should care about it. Because if the plaintiffs in this case get their way, the Voting Rights Act could be erased, and America could be transformed again. But this time, it would tear down more than half a century of voting rights progress.
The Supreme Court is now set to decide not just if Louisiana must keep 2 majority Black districts, but whether the Voting Rights Act can continue protecting minority representation nationwide.
So slap on your I voted stickers and get your notebooks out. Because this video is going to take a trip through history to explain how a shifting Supreme Court got us here and how this case in Louisiana could upend voting rights and political representation for a generation.
Oh, got a commercial. I don't even know why they eat this game on here.
This is the
All right, now here we go, y'all.
Docket, a Patreon-exclusive Vox series unpacking the Supreme Court cases that you need to know about.
Now, I want y'all to also pay attention to who is actually doing this shit. Think about who's actually doing it, which party, what they look like, all that shit. Because all this plays in, man. All this plays into it.
Let's go back in time to 1965. The world got Beatlemania. The Sound of Music was released, and it's also the year when the Voting Rights Act was passed. It was the culmination of years of effort and sacrifice by the civil rights movement.
Y'all, that shit was in place for 61 years. Some of y'all got grandmas and granddaddies that's older than 61. So they grew up at a time where Black people couldn't fucking vote. And when they was voting, motherfuckers was goddamn doing a whole lot of fucked up shit to make sure they vote. They really couldn't vote. This is in people's lifetimes right now. And that's what people be tripping when they say, nah, we ain't got that. We passed racism. Now, you got people still alive that dealt with this shit as kids.
The VRA has been amended several times, but there are 2 key pillars to know, Section 2 and Section 5. Section 2 bans denying the right to vote on account of race, and was also amended to include the right to elect representatives of their choice. Section 5 said that certain jurisdictions with a history of racial discrimination had to get permission from the federal government if they wanted to change their voting laws. The aim was to prevent the states and jurisdictions on this map, mostly the South, from passing laws that would discriminate against Black voters. We're going to look at 3 major cases since then that are key to understanding Louisiana versus Calais. First stop, 1986. A case called Thornburg versus Jingles built upon Section 2 and established rules governing when an alleged racial gerrymander violates the VRA.
The 2 most important factors under Jingles, one is whether a state has residential segregation. So, white people tend to live in one part of the state, Black people tend to live in another part of the state, and also whether it has racially polarized voting. So voters of one race tend to vote for the Republican Party, voters of the other race tend to vote for the Democratic Party. And the reason why the Supreme Court honed in on those 2 factors is that when you have voters clustering together and you also have racial polarization, that tends to produce 2 separate political communities where it's very easy for whichever racial group is in the majority to essentially cut the other group out of power by just drawing maps where they don't have any representation. And so you need to draw additional Black districts, additional Latino districts, additional districts to make sure that the minority group also has representation.
As a result of Jingles, the number of Black representatives shot up thanks to the creation of more majority Black districts. The second case, which came in 2013, was not so favorable to the Voting Rights Act. One of the key pillars of protection, Section 5, was struck down in a case called Shelby County versus Holder in a 5-4 decision. The result was that states and jurisdictions that used to have racist voting laws passed a number of new voting restrictions that disproportionately affected minority voters.
We saw a flood after the Shelby decision, a flood of laws designed to make it hard just to show up at the polls.
The premise of the Shelby County majority opinion is, well, we don't have all this racism anymore that we used to have in 1965, so we don't need the law that stopped the racism that we used to have in 1965.
That left Section 2 as the remaining safeguard to protect the voice of minority voters. Fast forward to 2023. Another gerrymandering case, Allen versus Milligan, is heard by the Roberts Court, now made up of 6 Republicans.
And y'all see these hoes, the last 2 coming out of Alabama, bro. Part of the South. They did some real fucked up shit around here.
Appointed and 3 Democrat-appointed justices. With the Voting Rights Act on the line once again, the ruling in Milligan upheld essential parts of Section 2 and struck down a racially gerrymandered map in Alabama. Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Kavanaugh voted with the court's liberal minority.
Because this court, or at least its Republican majority, is so hostile to the Voting Rights Act, I think everyone thought they were going to strike down the anti-gerrymandering provisions, overrule Jingles, allow Alabama to have whatever maps Alabama wanted. And everyone, including me, was shocked when that didn't happen.
I wanted to take a second to thank our Patreon members.
It's crazy, like, we don't care about that Patreon, bro. Y'all trying to sell shit. We ain't trying to hear none of that. These people are literally arguing that the racism is gone, so now you can take away that goddamn roadblock that stopped us from being racist. And as soon as they took it away, what they started doing? Being racist. It's like overnight, y'all. We gonna get into what they actually been doing since this fucking shit got repealed, but I want y'all to really understand what the fuck actually happened.
Our reporting. Now, back to the video. Now, in Louisiana versus Calais, the U.S. Supreme Court appears willing to strike down Section 2, despite the striking similarities to Milligan. This case has been kicking around for a few years before it made it to the Supreme Court, so let me catch you up. In 2022, Louisiana state legislators drew an electoral map called HB 1 that only included 1 majority Black district out of 6 statewide, despite the 2020 census showing that 1/3 of the Louisiana population was Black. Civil rights groups and community members sued, and it was decided that they needed a new map with 2 majority Black districts to reflect the state's population. The new map, SB 8, passed in the state legislature in 2024, and it seemed like it was over. But a group of non-African American voters claimed SB 8 was unconstitutional because race was the sole reason for the map. They argued because the map was created to fix discrimination against black voters, it was discriminating against white voters. This is...
Listen to that goddamn argument. I'm gonna let him say that one more time, because these people had the audacity to even say this shit out loud.
Race was the sole reason for the map. They argued because the map was created to fix discrimination against black voters, it was discriminating against white voters.
So to stop white people from discriminating against black people, if you do that, y'all, it's discriminatory against the white people who are discriminating against the black people. Like it's a circular argument, and y'all, the Supreme Court fucking passed the shit. They passed the shit. Like, they passed the shit to let these motherfuckers actually make that dumbass argument and win. It's like, bro, how is it racist to stop motherfuckers from being racist? That's the craziest shit in the world, but that's the world we live in right now. And you see which party is pushing for this. We see who actually, we're already gonna tell you, we'll show you who voted on this shit. It's all the Republicans, I can guarantee you that.
This is Louisiana versus Calais.
And the Calais case wound up being heard by 2 Trump judges. And those Trump judges said that the maps that Louisiana drew were themselves unconstitutional.
Whoa.
I've got another commercial.
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44. Guys.
After an initial oral argument in March 2025, the Supreme Court heard re-arguments 7 months later.
We will hear argument first this morning in case 24-109, Louisiana versus Calais.
These arguments were framed around a single question: whether the state's intentional creation of a second majority-minority congressional district violates the 14th or 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution.
This court's cases, in a variety of contexts, have said that race-based remedies are permissible for a period of time, sometimes for a long period of time, decades in some cases, but that they should not be indefinite and should have an endpoint.
If it's going above and beyond what the 15th Amendment requires of its own force, but Congress has actually chosen the Voting Rights Act as a remedy, does that affect the question of whether it can go on indefinitely or not?
I had 2 takeaways from the argument in Calais. One is that the Republican justices are absolutely determined to eliminate the Voting Rights Act racial gerrymandering safeguards. The other thing is that they have no idea how to do it. They couldn't agree on a rationale for why they should do it. They sort of started with the outcome they wanted, and then were tossing out different theories they could use to get to that outcome.
I find it particularly cruel to use 2 amendments that were created to protect Black and other communities of color and women, right, after Reconstruction, to use those 2 amendments to then take away voice and rights from the very people they were created to protect.
In many ways, the Voting Rights Act has already been gutted and no longer carries the same protections it once had. This case could be its last gasp.
Now our governor, our attorney general, and our legislature, who are all Republicanly controlled, are saying that it was a mistake. It was a mistake to create a fair map. It was a mistake to give voice to an opportunity for Black voters to be able to elect a candidate of choice, to have true representation.
You know, I've always viewed the Voting Rights Act as like a sacred text. You know, this is the law that finally made the United States into a liberal democracy where everyone had an equal, or at least every citizen had an equal say in who would govern them. But the law only works if you can trust the federal government to want to implement this law.
If the court decides to strike down Section 2, it would be ruling that any use of race in districting, even if it was meant to remedy racial discrimination in the first place, is illegal.
In the likely event that the Supreme Court overrules Jingles and eliminates the Voting Rights Act's protections against racial gerrymandering, the immediate effects could be pretty catastrophic, both for Black representation and for Democrats.
Some reports suggest that as many as 19 House seats could be flipped Republican with redrawn district maps. And it's not just the House of Representatives.
This is bigger than just one congressional seat in the state of Louisiana. We could see a sweeping change that would set us back 60 years.
What happens next with the Voting Rights Act won't be clear until the Supreme Court makes a ruling on the case, which should arrive just in time to set the stage for the 2026 midterm elections. It might very well usher in a renewed fight over voting rights in America in the 21st century.
It cannot be minimized. The fact that people died for Black voters to have voice and opportunity and representation. I think you absolutely will see, Black voters mobilizing across this country. There's going to be a reckoning.
Well, y'all pretty much now got the gist of what the hell transpired and what the hell they had going on. What the Supreme Court, and this was before the Supreme Court actually made the ruling. Well, the Supreme Court made the ruling, and pretty much what they were just telling y'all was going to happen, pretty much it didn't happen. But actually, let me get some music for this one. I don't know what I want to play, man. I'm try this one out. I don't see what this is. What is this? What is this? I don't know if I want to hear that shit. Well, I let it ride. It's kind of smooth in the back. But yeah, they voted and they passed it. They let the Republicans get their way. And people need to understand who the hell is actually doing this shit, bro. Like, everybody keeps talking about how, well, at least I hear the people on the right always speaking about how the Republicans are the party of the people. They're the party of law and order, the Constitution, family morals, Christianity, all that shit. And it's like, y'all out here literally taking away protections that kept people from being discriminated against by your ass. But you want to say it's the Democrats. It's funny how that shit keep working. Like, you keep telling me one thing, but next thing you know, you the one that's got the knife in my motherfucking back. But I'm gonna let this gentleman go ahead and tell y'all what the fuck it is, because we're gonna break down what kind of got into it a little bit. The Franco News Clips, all right? That's the name of the channel. This is my first time covering him, but I hadn't seen his content before. He do good content, but either way though, let's go ahead and see what he got. Oh, never mind. Hold up. Gotta turn the volume off. All right, let's go back to the beginning. Let's get it popping.
The Supreme Court just effectively gutted what was left of the Voting Rights Act while also potentially giving Republicans nearly 20 more seats in the House for all future elections. Because this morning, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 along ideological lines to strike down Louisiana's congressional map, arguing that it amounted to an illegal racial gerrymander. And notably, this case was started back in 2022 when Black voters and civil rights groups sued Louisiana over a post-2020 census voting map that had only outlined one majority Black district, despite the fact that 1/3 of the state's population is Black. And you had these groups arguing that the map violated Section 2 of the historic Voting Rights Act, which bans gerrymandering that undermines the power of minority voters. There are two ways that racial gerrymandering is done. Either by one, concentrating targeted voters so that they compose the majority in just one district when it really should maybe be two, or two, dividing up large groups, minority voters, among multiple districts to prevent them from really ever having a majority of the vote in any single boundary. This also requires states to be very careful when drawing maps, right? They need to consider race to a certain degree in order to ensure that minority voters have a say in electing the candidates of their choosing. But maps that are drawn too explicitly along racial lines violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment's ban on racial discrimination in voting. And, at least until today, courts have used Section 2 to strike down district maps that weaken minority voting power, even without proof that maps were intentionally designed to discriminate against minority groups. That's been the standard for 4 decades, and so under that logic, a federal court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs in Louisiana and ordered the state legislature to draw a new map that added a second majority Black congressional district. So as a result, lawmakers created a map that allowed voters to elect Representative Cleo Fields, a Black Democrat, to flip the new district. Then, at the same time, the Republican-controlled legislature drew the district lines in a very janky way. They did it in part so it could create the majority Black district while still protecting the seats of key Republicans, including House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. So as a result, a group of self-described non-Black voters, backed by powerful conservative groups, filed a lawsuit claiming that the new map was itself a racial gerrymander because lawmakers had relied too much on race when they drew it, with lawyers for the plaintiffs arguing in court that the wonky shape was clear evidence that race had been the main factor in drawing the district. And in its decision today, the Supreme Court ruled that Louisiana's map was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. But this ruling, it goes way beyond just Louisiana. Because the court was considering Section 2 more broadly, the decision effectively undercuts decades of precedent aimed at ensuring minority voters have an equal opportunity to participate in elections. Because like I noted earlier, for the last 40 years, district maps could be struck down if they diluted minority voting power, regardless of intent. But in the majority opinion, you had Justice Samuel Alito writing that challengers must show that a state intentionally drew district lines to discriminate against minority voters. But then also with this, you had Justice Kagan hitting back in her dissent, which she actually read from the bench in a rare move to show just how much she disagreed with the majority. And in it, you had Kagan arguing that in practice, the decision makes it nearly impossible to consider race at all when drawing up voting maps, and claiming that the court's decision will set back the foundational right Congress granted of racial equality and electoral opportunity. Now, all that said, very notably, the court did not strike down Section 2 entirely, which was a very real concern for many advocates. But still, you have experts saying that this ruling effectively guts the VRA and makes it entirely toothless. And you've had many kind of expecting this, since for the last decade, the Supreme Court's been chipping away at key parts of the law, them slowly weakening it bit by bit. And in their dissent, you had the liberal Justice justices arguing that today's decision, it removes the last remaining pillar that gave real power to a historic law that has dramatically helped increase minority representation in both state and federal offices. Right now, the big question on everyone's mind is, what will this mean for elections? And while we do know for a fact that this is going to be incredibly consequential, one of the big unknowns is how long it's going to take before we actually see the impacts. Right? Because many majority-minority districts across the country have been redrawn over the last 4 decades to comply with Section 2 of the VRA, though most are currently concentrated in the South. But now states can challenge those maps based on the new Supreme Court ruling. So as a result, we can see new maps with fewer districts where minority voters form a majority. And because those districts are more likely to elect Democrats, splitting them up could shift those seats towards Republicans. And we're not talking about a few districts here or there. I mean, one analysis found that by gutting Section 2, the Supreme Court could effectively give Republicans as many as 19 more seats in the House. And you can bet your ass that Republicans have already been contingency planning for this outcome for a while now. But one of the questions is whether they could pull this off before the midterms. And while many states, they can't swing changes to their maps right now because their primaries have already happened, there are still plenty of others that could take action. I mean, for one,
hey, and he was saying this shit before what we saw happen in Louisiana. That dude just declared a state of emergency. People had already voted, y'all. Sent their ballots out. They was like, nope. We can't do it. Nope. State of emergency. Redraw the map. So they did exactly what the fuck he said they could do. No, them motherfuckers jumped on that. They've been planning on this for a long time.
Louisiana is likely going to have to redraw its maps before the midterms because of this ruling. Though notably, the state attorney general said she would defer to the legislature, which she believes is enough time to act before November. But then beyond that, you had the New York Times reporting that there are several other states that still have time to redraw their maps, including Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Maryland, Missouri, Tennessee, and Florida. And all of those states, with the exception of Maryland, are controlled by Republican legislatures. We are now literally already seeing movement on this front. Just hours after the Supreme Court decision was released, both chambers of the Florida legislature approved a new map that could give Republicans as many as 4 new seats. Right, a huge victory for Ron DeSantis, who's led the redistricting campaign and used the likely dismantling of Section 2 as the main justification for his effort. Also, the governor of Mississippi, he's vowed to call lawmakers for a special session to redraw the state's map after the Supreme Court made its decision. And in a statement today, you had Alabama's attorney general promising that the state would act quickly to ensure that our congressional maps reflect the will of the people, not a racial quota system the Constitution forbids. And that, it's just a start. All over the country, we are seeing Republican leaders calling for viable states to act before the midterms. Right, but also, even if some states, they can't get together new maps before November, it's really just a matter of time. Very likely, they'll have them ready by 2028. So the implications here for future elections, it's very scary for anyone that was kind of hoping to have a representative democracy. And very likely, we're just going to see states gerrymandering like crazy for power. Right? Because as we've seen with other things, if some states do it, then others have to respond, and it just keeps going.
My therapist said something to me about a year ago that I still think about almost every single week. Work was a mess.
Oh, yeah. So he pretty much gave us a quick little breakdown of what the hell they pretty much was going to do, how it's kind of going to look. And, dude, I'm trying to tell you, they sprinted like fucking 2 bats. I mean, I don't even understand how fast they sprinted as fast as they did to get these maps changed. They already had them ready to go, y'all. I'm be honest with you. The motherfuckers, they've been planning on this shit for some years. They've been planning on it for a hot minute, and they already knew as soon as the Supreme Court did what they knew they were gonna do, because they packed the courts. They were gonna run and do it. And that's why, look, I gotta say it straight up, like, dude, I can't trust that party. I don't fuck with either one of them, but I can't trust that party. So the Democrats gonna have to grow some balls, y'all. They're gonna, in my opinion, they're gonna have to grow some balls. And hopefully they can win in the midterms in spite of this shit, because this is going to help a lot of Republicans. But hopefully they can win in spite of this shit, take the House and take the Senate. You can get Trump ass up out of there. Matter of fact, yeah, you need to go ahead and get him up out of there ASAP. That need to be number one thing. Get his ass gone. And then you need to start writing laws. You need to start getting some of these laws fucking written. Y'all got to work. You got to get to work. Y'all need to have a game plan. I don't know who's over y'all department and shit, whatever the fuck, whoever the head of the Democratic Party. But y'all need to get to work and start drawing up just in case. Contingency plans, nigga. Because y'all should fucking win this motherfucking shit. Y'all should win it, but y'all bullshit. Y'all gonna let these motherfucking Republicans keep doing what the fuck they doing. But either way, though, we got to go to PBS, man, because they got to tell you a little something, man, about these laws in place, man. Because a lot of folks be telling black folks, like, bro, we just be making this shit up. It's like, dude, the first chance they got, they target black folks again. Like, why y'all keep fucking with us? Fuck we did to y'all. But this ain't the first time. And it ain't going to be the last. But either way, though, let's go. PBS.
What is the function of the law? When asked this question, most of us would answer easily. Laws are intended to maintain order and promote justice, and as members of society, we uphold them. But what happens when those laws promote and spread discrimination and bigotry? In this episode of Origin of Everything, we'll be analyzing the discriminatory history of US law, tracing its origins in colonialism to the present-day penal system. In order to deconstruct this troubling history, we'll be looking at 4 distinct time periods of US law. First, we'll look at the foundation of legal discrimination based on race during colonialism. Next, we'll examine the system of chattel slavery to see how the legacies of colonialism translated into ongoing legal subjugation for Black subjects in the US. Third, we'll explore how Jim Crow laws extended legal discrimination into the 20th century. And finally, we'll discuss how the concepts of being tough on crime in the latter half of the 20th and early 21st century allowed the continuation and expansion of discriminatory laws under the umbrella of mass incarceration. By tracing this timeline, we'll be looking at the ways discriminatory legal practices have always disproportionately impacted Black and Brown communities, and how these legacies and laws continue to have adverse effects on vulnerable communities to this day.
All right, let's get to it.
But before we get into the heart of how laws and sentencing structures can be discriminatory, we should clarify a few key terms, namely crime and punishment. And no, I'm not talking about the Dostoevsky novel of the same name. I'm talking about crime or breaking of laws and punishment, as in the penalty you pay as a result of being found guilty of committing a crime. Although we often think of these things as directly correlated, think of the old adage, if you do the crime, you've got to do the time, there's actually not a direct relationship between how much crime is committed and what types of punishment are meted out. In his book, Thinking About Crime, Sense and Sensibility in American Penal Culture, Professor Michael Tonry notes that nations with remarkably similar crime rates often have vastly different sentencing and punishment standards. He determined—
And that is true, because I was actually looking at how it's one of them European countries. Switzerland, over there in that area. These motherfuckers, they talked about the difference between how much money they spent on their prisons compared to how much we spent on ours, what programs they have in place for them, how they actually punish them for the crimes that they do, different levels of how they do it. And like, dude, it's way more efficient, at least by the numbers, when it comes to repeat offenders than it is in the United States. Not even close. United States they just lock your ass up and fucking try to get free labor out of your ass. Because slavery is still legal for punishment for a crime. A lot of people keep forgetting about that. Talking about, we abolished slavery. Not all the way. Not all the way. Fucking, and now the government can fucking keep you as a slave. The state can keep you as a slave, but individuals can't no more. That's pretty much how that worked. But they talked about how, look, the differences in between rehabilitating these people over here, putting them in programs, giving them jobs, actually paying these motherfuckers, not having them locked up in cages and chains and shit, like actually having workers in here to talk to these motherfuckers, that let them know knowledge and help. Like, bro, it's like night and fucking day, bro.
That crime rates and punishment rates often don't align, and that governments decide how much punishment they want. He writes, this can be seen by comparing crime and punishment trends in Finland, Germany, and the United States between 1960 and 1990. The trends are close to identical. Violent crime rates in all 3 countries grew by a factor of 3 to 4, and homicide rates more than doubled. Yet the US imprisonment rate quadrupled in that period, the Finnish rate fell by 60%, and the German rate was broadly stable. So in this example, we see 3 countries with almost identical crime trends, with 3 starkly different ideas of punishment. Therefore, when we analyze how laws are broken and punishment is assigned, we have to look at why societies change their stances on crime and punishment. Tonry attributes this to a few factors, 2 important ones being moral panics and the sensibilities of a society. Moral panics, as he describes them, occur when a society sees a moral or social issue and overreacts as a result, which usually leads to increased rates of punishment or more severe punishment for offenders. Another cause is that societal sensibilities, or the attitudes and beliefs of the society, often change, which in turn changes the types of acts we consider crimes and the types of things we consider as just punishment. So although we're often taught to look at crime as directly correlated to punishment, there's actually an argument to be made that they're working somewhat independently of each other. Which brings us to our first stop in the history of legal discrimination in the United States: colonialism and slavery. After colonies were established in North America, colonists were subject to the laws and customs of England. In their essay, Situating Colonialism, Race, and Punishment, Professors Jeeta Chowdhury and Mark Beeman explain how the development of slavery in the North American colonies, and later in the early United States, became dependent on the passage of discriminatory laws that specifically—
I mean, these motherfuckers drew up the diagrams of them fucking putting a whole bunch of niggas on a boat. Like, didn't even give a fuck. And this is how we're gonna fit them at. We're gonna fit them up there, you know, like that, and slide them over there, man. We're gonna play a little Tetris with this boat right here with these niggas. God, like holy people, right? Christians. Okay.
Targeted people of African descent. They detail how, although the concept of discrimination based on ethnic or social groups dates back to antiquity, the idea that race was entirely based on skin tone and physical features evolved alongside the emergence of chattel slavery. Then the ideal was solidified with the emergence of scientific racism in the 18th and 19th centuries. Chowdhury and Beeman go on to note that although some of the original people of African descent who entered the English colonies came as indentured servants and were eventually set free, similar to English indentured servants, this quickly changed when colonists turned to chattel slavery as a source of consistent, exploited, and unpaid labor. They write, in other words, slavery seems to have evolved in part as a punishment reserved for Africans originally indentured. English indentured servants, presumably protected by English rights and the Christianity they shared with their masters, avoided such punishment. From the 1640s through the 1660s, with the principle of lifelong involuntary servitude established for Africans in colonial America, individual colonies began enacting legislation declaring Negroes sent to the colonies and their offspring slaves for life. In short, slavery in British colonial America became a punishment for being Black. With this important distinction,
So everybody that wants to sit around here and say that, well, there were slaves in other places, nobody did slavery like the United States of America did. They changed the game up. They said it evolved. It's like, nah, nigga, I got you for the rest of your life because you Black, and anything you have, any babies, because I'm going to let you fuck around here, any of your babies going to be my slaves too. And then they have babies, they're going to be my slaves too. And they have babies, they're going to be my slaves too. So on and so forth to the day I die. And then on, because my kids going to take over after. They did some real sick ass shit. That's the type of time they was on.
Colonial America created the system of chattel slavery that sentenced Black people to perpetual servitude. Slavery created an explicit relationship between race and the law from the earliest foundations of American society. And this new legal category meant that new forms of punishment and torture were invented to accommodate this shift in who could be considered a full person under the law. Soon, laws and colonial codes were written to regulate the control and punishment of the enslaved. Although slavery was not the first instance of race being tied to laws in the new colonies, the colonization of land in North America was based on the assumption that Native Americans did not have rights to the land they had inhabited long before settler colonialism declared North America as uninhabited. Therefore, law.
So we just wrote some shit on a piece of paper and said that, well, we don't give a fuck that y'all was here. We claim this land is ours, and we got the paper to say that it's ours, so go on, get the fuck out of here before we kill you. That's the type of time these motherfuckers was on. What sane, humane Christian group would do some shit like that? That sounds like some devil type shit right there. I'm just being honest. That sounds like some devil type shit. That don't sound like no nice, happy, want to love and care type people would do. That ain't what that sound like.
Laws that allowed white settlers to displace and physically harm Native Americans also established an early relationship between race and the law in colonial America. While most punishment was left up to slave owners and could include torture, brutal beatings, rape, and other inhumane cruelties, more serious punishment, such as execution, was sometimes left up to the discretion of judges for supposed offenses that occurred away from the plantation. But whether it was being dealt by overseers and owners or by the state, the result was a system of exploitation and legally supported subjugation that left Black subjects almost entirely outside of the protections of the law. This system remained firmly in place in parts of the United States until 1865, with the ratification of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. But even these newly won freedoms could not guarantee the continuation of legal and extra-legal methods of racial and social control. Following the close of the Civil War in 1865, the U.S. entered into a period known as Reconstruction, which lasted until the 1870s. Although there were some legal and societal victories for Black subjects during this time, they were swiftly overturned and replaced by Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow introduced a set of laws that systematically stripped Black citizens of their rights while also relegating them to inferior, separate but equal public facilities like schools, washrooms, and sections of the bus, among other indignities. Black citizens were denied access to basic rights like voting, while also suffering under the weight of racial terror imposed by groups like the KKK and other white supremacists who organized lynchings and other forms of racialized violence. Jim Crow laws effectively relegated Black subjects to second-class citizenship based on a racialized caste system where white citizens were privileged above all others. This system of disenfranchisement was also supported by methods of financial control like sharecropping, which effectively reinstated the financial inequity of slavery through unfair practices. And systems like convict leasing guaranteed that Black people would be returned to a system almost identical to slavery in everything but name. With convict leasing, private businesses could rent the labor of prisoners to complete tasks. The businesses would pay the state, and the prisoners would be forced to perform labor for free. As a result, Southern states started incarcerating newly emancipated Black citizens at a higher rate, for anything from petty theft to vagrancy to other vaguely defined laws. This practice lasted from the late 19th century into the early 20th century. For more on the convict leasing system, check out our episode, Why Do...
But you know, we the Supreme Court told us, y'all, they told us all that you know, well, the Supreme Court said they accept Louisiana's argument that, you know, we're past all these racist ass laws and the racism is gone, so we don't need any protections for these people anymore. And they actually agreed that no, y'all ain't that racist down there no more. Y'all, matter of fact, y'all are not racist at all. And this shit's still going on right now. So it's like, it's kind of, you know, the fix is in, y'all. It's kind of like kangaroo court type shit.
We have private prisons right here on our channel. The story of Jim Crow finally came to an official end with the emergence of the modern civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s, when civil rights leaders and activists fought to have these decades-long practices rolled back. But that only led to new ways of racialized legal discrimination. In her book, The New Jim Crow, legal scholar, civil rights lawyer, and advocate Michelle Alexander details the relationship between race and continued legal discrimination in the form of mass incarceration. In the 1960s, the prison population in the United States was around 200,000. But by the early 2000s, that number had exploded to over 1.5 million people in prison, with hundreds of thousands in other penal facilities. Think youth facilities, jails, and immigrant detention centers. And much of that increase can be attributed to Reagan-era war on drugs policies, although the war on drugs was first popularized by the Nixon administration in the 1970s. Popular wisdom connects these policies to the rise of crack cocaine across the US. However, according to Alexander, the official political campaign in 1982, known as the War on Drugs, actually predates the rise of crack cocaine addiction it was commonly assumed to address. She writes, "A few years after the drug war was declared, crack began to spread rapidly in the poor Black neighborhoods of Los Angeles and later emerged in cities across the country. The Reagan administration hired staff to publicize the emergence of crack cocaine in 1985 as part of a strategic effort to build public and legislative support for the war. The media campaign was an extraordinary success. The media bonanza surrounding the new demon drug helped to catapult the war on drugs from an ambitious federal policy to an actual war. Because of its cheaper price, crack cocaine use spread more rapidly in poor communities than its more expensive counterpart, powder cocaine. After the war on drugs picked up popularity and speed, we began to see the rapid incarceration of minorities, oftentimes for non-violent drug-based offenses as a result. And those arrested for crack cocaine-related charges face much more severe sentences compared to other drug offenses. For example, it was common practice to follow the 100-to-1 rule. An op-ed in the New York Times explains, "In what's known as the 100-to-1 rule, federal law mandates a 10-year sentence for anyone caught with 50 grams of crack, about the weight of a candy bar. To get a comparable sentence, a dealer selling powdered cocaine would have to be caught with 5,000 grams, enough to fill a briefcase."
Make that make sense. So you gonna get 10 years for crack the size of a candy bar. But this motherfucker have a whole suitcase full of powdered cocaine. But once again, y'all, this country, it's not racist. Because we know who getting the goddamn fucking powdered shit. That's going to the rich white folks. They like to smoke that shit on Wall Street. We know who getting the crack. And it's still some white people getting crack too. I ain't gonna hold you on that. A lot of white people smoke crack too. But the rich white folks, they were getting that cocaine. They getting that powder, that booger sugar.
With 5,000 grams, enough to fill a briefcase. This wasn't rolled back until 2010 when Congress passed the Fair Sentencing Act. The act reduced the disparities between sentencing for crack and powder cocaine from 100-to-1 to 18-to-1. But despite the partial reversal of war on drugs policies, the US still imprisons more people per capita and overall than any other country in the world. And although African Americans made up only roughly 13% of the US population in the 2010 census, in many areas, they are the majority of the prison population, even though they are not necessarily committing crime at a higher rate than white populations. As a result, Alexander writes, although this new system of racialized social control purports to be colorblind, it creates and maintains racial hierarchy much as earlier systems of control did. Like Jim Crow and slavery, mass incarceration operates as a tightly networked system of laws, policies, customs, and institutions that operate collectively to ensure the subordinate status of a group defined largely by race. In her book, she details the ways that those who are convicted of crimes are permanently labeled as felons and thus systematically barred from access to the full rights of citizenship through processes like employment discrimination, being denied the right to vote, and being excluded from jury duty, although some activist groups are fighting to reverse or lessen these discriminations. So this episode just scratches the surface.
So, like, in the grand scheme of things, what she breaking down, like, all these things have constantly keep getting done to a certain group of people. Like, this shit, like, the fight has never stopped. Like, the attack has never stopped. And for the people to sit around here and say, like it's crazy that you can even think that the Supreme Court would even, in a fair world, in a righteous world, you would think that the people on that Supreme Court who are here to uphold these laws that motherfuckers have put in place over decades, has been around for hundreds of years, would literally follow them. But instead, these motherfuckers said, fuck that shit, we gonna change the law, yeah. We gonna change the law. It's all right. Y'all for fuck with them niggas again. And the nigga voted for it, because Clarence Thomas, well, his coon ass up on there. His coon ass right up there. Right up there. Speaking of his coon ass, we don't talk about some of these black sellouts. I ain't gonna hold you. Matter of fact, before we do that one though, I'm gonna show y'all the utter disrespect when it comes to this shit, because this just recently happened. And this is going towards my point of saying, like, how can the Supreme Court really say that there's no racial issues going on down there in Louisiana? Because shit like this is still happening. Shout out to Dr. Rashad Ritchie. TYT ain't cover one of his in a minute, but we about to cover one right now. Let's get it.
Inside of the courtroom by another lawyer. Okay? What if I told you that an attorney is called the N-word inside of the courtroom by another lawyer? Okay? You would expect heads to roll. You're held in contempt. Put it up for a mask. Black prosecutor called the N-word in court by an attorney. According to the Daily Mail, Lynette Lockhart, an accomplished black prosecutor in Missouri, was allegedly called a vile racist slur by Platte City defense attorney Scott Campbell, who wasn't happy with her strict plea deals. Lynette Lockhart is a well-respected assistant prosecuting attorney, as well as a law professor at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and a U.S. Army veteran. Filed a complaint against Campbell, May 2024. The 60-year-old white male later confessed to calling her the slur, which he said while having a discussion with another attorney about his ability to get along with various Platte County assistant prosecutors, the complaint detailed. The other attorney mentioned to Campbell that he experienced difficulty obtaining favorable plea deals from Lockhart, who was the assistant prosecuting attorney handling the criminal docket that day. Campbell then replied to his colleague, "Is it because she is a," and said N-word, the legal document said. Though she was not there when Campbell called her the horrible slur, Lockhart later found out what he said from her colleagues, Platte County prosecutor Eric Zahn and first assistant prosecuting attorney Mark Gibson, according to the complaint. "When I learned that Mr. Campbell called me the N-word, I cried. Certainly I was offended."
I ain't gonna lie, Lil Heat done got took off of this. Like, so he ain't say it directly to your damn face up in there. He was whispering that shit to another attorney in there, but still though, like, dude. Hey, right there.
It's hurt, which might be expected, Lockhart wrote in the legal documents. The attorney said that she suffered weeks on end with self-doubt, questioning, and frankly, fear of anyone around me after hearing what Campbell called her.
I should
After
already had
initially
that.
hearing
Not the first part. Not the first part.
of
Second part.
Lockhart's complaint, Campbell stated, quote, "These allegations made me literally sick to my stomach." During his confession, Campbell admitted that he said a very stupid thing to Lockhart and that he is, quote, "ungodly sorry about it," end quote. The complaint read, quote, "I would never speak or write that word ever in my life under any circumstances. It was a terrible mistake on my part, that word, and I did it. I really like Miss Lockhart," the defense attorney added, per the complaint. He was then told, "Don't use that word," by Nicole Fisher, a member of the disciplinary committee, who questioned Campbell about the incident. There's more. In response, Campbell said he is aware of that now. Can we back up for?
Oh, Lord. All right, commercial, y'all. I already know it's about to be some bullshit coming right here.
A moment.
I bet money. I ain't even read it, but I have read a little bit of it. This about to be some bullshit.
So, sir, let's put up the pictures again for a moment. So, sir, let's put up the pictures again. Can I call you Mr. White Man? I mean, that's far better than calling you a racial slur. So I'm going to call you Mr. White Man. So, Mr. White Man, you went through all of your undergrad career. You went through law school, and you are just finding out upon this disciplinary committee action that you should not call opposing counsel, who happens to be the prosecutor and your client's fate rests in her hands. You should not call her the N-word. Are you just finding out you should not say the N-word, period? Or you should not call opposing counsel the N-word? I need to know with specifics, which one are you just now learning?
Yeah, this shit crazy, bro. This shit wild. You saw that shit, man?
Part of the game plan, you got to play dumb. Play dumb like you didn't know. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. In America. And what they said they had in Memphis? Some shit like that? Or somewhere down in the South.
So he says, "I know that now," he said. "Nobody ever really told me that directly." Can we go back to
Hell no.
I would not hire him as my defense attorney. Okay. He says his excuse is nobody ever told him directly that he should not call his colleagues in the courtroom the N-word while he's representing his clients in criminal matters. Okay. He says, "I grew up in the backwoods." Jordan, put his picture back up again. I would highly recommend, my opinion, for him not to be your guy, okay? He says he grew up in the backwoods, all right? And I should have known that. I've been to classes, but they never discussed that. These are his words now. "I did it that one time, and it will never happen again. Ever, ever." He actually said ever, ever to end his sentence.
Boy, you don't sit your stupid ass down. Who the f you think you is?
Don't nobody believe him. But it's just funny that this grown ass man said that shit and want somebody to actually like, you believe me? You believe me? It's like, don't nobody believe you, boy.
So after Campbell confessed being a backwood raised, ill-informed individual, he told the committee that he would resign as member of the Sixth Circuit Judicial Commission, which is a nominated group for judges in Platte County. He was found guilty of professional misconduct last year under the state's rules for professional legal conduct. The rules state that it is wrong for a lawyer to manifest by words or conduct in representing a client bias or prejudice or harassment, including but not limited to bias, prejudice, or harassment based on race, sex, gender identity, religion, national origin, ethnicity, disability, age, sexual orientation, or marital status. These are things he already knew because he has to swear and affirm by them. There's more. Although he admitted and was found guilty of the incident, it is up to the state's highest court to determine punishment for attorneys found guilty of such conduct. Campbell could just be reprimanded for his actions, suspended, or disbarred for what he did. He could also walk away scot-free. The fate of his legal career is now in the hands of the Missouri Supreme Court. When the Daily Mail contacted Lockhart for a comment, she said, quote, "All my feelings on it, the case are public," end quote. The Daily Mail contacted Campbell's office for comment, but he did not immediately respond. Okay, Sharon, it seems to me that his excuse for why he did it is about as bad as him doing it. What say you?
Popeye's sidekick here is full of hot air. Okay, he's Doc. I don't know that you needed the disclaimer and warning people that this perhaps is not who you want to represent you. He's a fool and a racist, but primarily I may stick with fool. He has no kind of understanding about how to comport himself in court, let alone show up in life in a way that is credible. He's just not credible.
Man, look, the motherfucker funny though. I will give him that though. He a funny motherfucker. Cause I'm like, dude, I wouldn't even think to say that type of shit. But they gonna give him a slap on the wrist, y'all. They not finna hear that motherfucker up, bro. They not finna hear him up for that shit. They not. But speaking of coons, because we was talking about coons earlier, y'all. We talking about some of these coons. I seen a video that Anton Daniels put up a couple months ago. I think it was like 9 months ago he put that bitch up. And it was pretty much a white dude talking shit about why he don't like black people or whatever the fuck. He's like, the jig is up. We white people don't need to feel sorry and all that shit like that. Well, they actually did a graded level of coons. And I was like, man, I think that'd be interesting to go through some of them. I'm probably gonna get in trouble saying that word. I've seen YouTube be on that shit before. But either way though, we about to check this out. I don't know who this from. This is from Black Stories Untold. Shout out to them. Salute, salute, salute. Check this out, y'all. Look at this.
For 400 years, white racists have weaponized our own people against us. And today, I'm breaking down the 4 types of black betrayal that keep us shackled. Level 1, the house slave. Meet Steven, the house slave who loves his chains so much, he'll kill to keep them on. This ain't just a movie character, y'all. This is the blueprint for the most toxic black person in America.
That's who the hell you calling Snowball, hoss boy? I'll snatch your black off that man down here in the mud so fast, make your head. Steven.
See, Steven don't just serve white people. He is a white racist in black skin. He's so deep in Stockholm Syndrome that he fears freedom more than bondage. Why? Because oppression is all he's ever known, and he's convinced himself that his survival depends on keeping happy. In Django Unchained, Steven isn't just a servant, he's the enforcer. When Broomhilda tries to escape, who punishes her? Steven. When Django arrives as a free man, who's most threatened? Steven. This man has so internalized his oppression that he sees other black people's freedom as a personal attack on his identity. Sound familiar? That's Uncle Ruckus, the cartoon version of what's very real in our community. These are the black folks who will police you for being too black, who mock our culture to get.
And I ain't gonna hold you, man. Samuel L. Jackson, you got to get that man an award for that one, man. Because like it was already funny with seeing the Boondocks, Uncle Ruckus, but seeing Samuel play Steven, bruh. And we know a nigga like that. We all know a nigga like that. It's always look, we all know one. It's like you brown nose and ass, like them people don't like you, bruh. But let's keep going. I'm sorry.
White folks to pat them on the head and say, you're one of the good ones. But this isn't just comedy, people. This is psychological warfare. The
That's
house slave
shit.
mentality runs so deep that these individuals will literally work against their own people's interests to maintain their position in the white power structure. Herschel Walker literally said, black families.
And look, y'all remember what he said right there. Listen to what he just said right here.
Work against their own people's interests to maintain their position in the white power structure.
And that's what a lot of these poor whites are out here doing in their own community. They'll go against their own best interests just to keep black people down. We got a lot of them around here in America right now. They've been loud and proud. I've been taking names and taking pictures and shit. Got some pictures of y'all. But it's funny, man. That's what these Negroes, black Republicans, these black Republicans, that's them motherfuckers right there, them coon-ass motherfuckers.
Herschel Walker literally said, black families don't need fathers because we had strong women. This man was so desperate for white Republican approval that he threw his own people under the bus on national television. He painted black fathers as dispensable while running for Senate in Georgia, the same state where his own father abandoned him. But here's where it gets really sick. Walker wasn't just talking to white Republicans. He was talking to black mothers, telling them they should be grateful to struggle alone. He was telling black children that they don't deserve fathers. Also, he could get a pat on the head from people who will never truly accept him. The house slave doesn't just hurt us through their actions. They poison our minds with self-hatred. They teach our children that being black is something to overcome, not something to celebrate. They turn our survival mechanisms into weapons against ourselves. Here's what makes the house slaves so dangerous. They convince white people that racism isn't the problem. We are. They give oppressors permission to keep oppressing because, see, even they agree with us. Remember, Stephen wasn't just loyal to Calvin Candy. He was more racist than his master. When the house exploded at the end of Django, it wasn't just a building burning down. It was the destruction of an entire system that depended on black people policing other black people. And that's why this mentality is the foundation of all the other levels. Every other type of black betrayal starts with this basic premise, that white approval is more valuable than black liberation. Before we get to the next level, if you're learning something from this breakdown, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for
ring the bell, subscribe, all that shit over here.
Black Stories Untold. We're out here telling the stories they don't want you to hear, exposing the systems they don't want you to understand. Your support keeps us free to speak these truths. Level 2, the assimilationist celebrity. I'm not black, I'm OJ. These people perfected the art of racial amnesia. They got so comfortable in white spaces that they forgot where they came from. Or worse, they remember, but they're ashamed of it. The assimilationist celebrity plays a different game than the house slave. They don't attack us directly, they just disappear us. They code switch so hard, they develop split.
I dare you to let
Them
me
of us
build
said code switch so hard, bro. So hard.
you a completely free e-commerce store.
Split personalities. Around white folks? Oh, I don't really see color. But the moment they need us for damage control, suddenly they remember they're black. Tiger Woods literally created a whole new racial category, Cablinasian, to avoid being called black. This man was so uncomfortable with his African heritage that he invented a word to escape it. But when his career imploded and he needed redemption, suddenly black people were supposed to support him because we're family. O.J. Simpson spent decades distancing himself from the black community. He lived in white neighborhoods, dated white women, and famously said, "I'm not black, I'm O.J." But when he was on trial for homicide, who did his lawyers appeal to? Black jurors who remembered how white America had treated black men in the justice system. Remember when Michael Jordan said, "Republicans buy sneakers too," when asked to support Harvey Gantt, a black Democrat running against Jesse Helms, one of the most racist senators in modern history? That's the assimilationist playbook. Stay profitable, stay safe, stay silent. These celebrities think they can buy their way out of blackness. They move to the whitest neighborhoods, send their kids to the whitest schools, marry white spouses, and raise children who don't know they're black until the world reminds them. And when racism smacks them in the face, and it always does, they're shocked. But here's the real damage. They sell our young people a lie. They make kids believe that if you just work hard enough, speak white enough, dress right enough, you can escape racism. They teach our children that being authentically black is a limitation, not a source of power. Think about how many young black athletes and entertainers have followed this blueprint. They sanitize their image, avoid controversial topics like police brutality or systemic racism, and present themselves as safe, for white consumption. They become brands, not people, products, not advocates. The assimilationist celebrity is dangerous because they don't just betray us, they make betrayal look aspirational. They turn sellout behavior into success goals. They teach our children that the price of admission to white spaces is the abandonment of Black identity. And when the next generation of Black celebrities follows their lead, staying silent while their people suffer, who do you think they're modeling themselves after? The cycle continues. And our voices get quieter and quieter in the spaces where they need to be loudest. But here's where it gets even more dangerous. What happens when these sellouts don't just stay silent, but actively become the mouthpiece for our oppression? Level 3, the puppet politician. Systemic racism doesn't exist in America. This is Candace Owens. This is Clarence Thomas. This is Tim Scott, telling us America isn't a racist country. These are the most dangerous Black people in America today. Why? Because they don't just abandon us, they lead the charge against us. They become the Black face of white racism, giving oppressive policies a chocolate coating so they go down easier. Clarence Thomas sits on the highest court in the land and systematically dismantles every protection our ancestors died for. Affirmative action? Gone. Voting rights? Gutted. Civil rights protections? Weakened. And he does it with a smile, knowing damn well he wouldn't be where he is without the very programs he's destroying. Let's be real about Thomas for a minute. This man was accused of physical harassment by Anita Hill, a Black woman who put her career on the line to tell the truth. And how did he respond? He called it a high-tech lynching, using the language of Black oppression to defend himself while throwing a Black woman under the bus. Then, he spent the next 30 years on the court, making sure other Black people couldn't access the opportunities that got him there. Thomas's wife, Jenny, was actively working to overturn the 2020 election results, and Thomas refused to recuse himself from cases involving January 6th. This man has so little regard for justice that he'll corrupt the highest court in the land to serve white political interests. But Thomas operates in the shadows. Candace Owens?
And look, some people can disagree with what he said about Clarence Thomas, but Clarence Thomas is cool if it ain't been one. And it's so diabolical the way he break it down like that. But yeah, we got to talk about Candace because I know some people been giving Candace some props. And I didn't give her props for a few different topics depending on what it was. But a broken clock can be right twice a day. The clock still broke. That bitch broke. Up here at least.
She's out here making anti-Blackness into a full-time career. Owens tours college campuses telling young white kids that racism is over, that Black people are just making excuses, that slavery was actually beneficial because it brought Africans to America. She's turned hatred of her own people into a brand, a multimedia empire, a whole damn industry. She literally said that if he had just stayed in Germany, he would have been fine, because she was so desperate to own the libs that she lost her damn mind. But here's the thing, that wasn't a mistake. That's who she is. Someone so consumed with anti-Black ideology that she'll defend him to make a point against Black progress. And look at these audiences when she speaks. You see the joy on these white faces? They finally found Black people who will say what they've always wanted to say.
We're going to show you 13 mind-blowing use cases for creators using the new AI Workspace 2.0 from GenSpark.
See? They said it, not us. We're not racist. We're just agreeing with the Black lady. But if you want to see the ultimate puppet show, let's talk about Kanye West. This man went from...
Brother Kanye, man. Look. Shout out to him for the last album, but I ain't gonna lie. Kanye, he ain't nobody you need to be listening to by shit. But on some real ass shit. Kanye, he that ain't there. That ain't there.
From George Bush doesn't care about Black people to walking around in White Lives Matter shirts with Candace Owens like some kind of minstrel show. Kanye had the audacity to say that 400 years of slavery sounds like a choice. This man really sat on TMZ and told the world that our ancestors chose to be kidnapped from Africa, chose to be chained in slave ships, chose to be beaten, assaulted, and systematically subdued for 4 centuries. You know what that was? That was Kanye telling white people exactly what they wanted to hear. That slavery wasn't that bad. That Black people are responsible for their own oppression. That racism is just a mindset we can choose to overcome. And when he got called out for it, what did he do? Doubled down. started hanging out with Candace Owens, wearing MAGA hats, meeting with Trump in the Oval Office, grinning like a damn fool while the president used him as a prop. Then this man had the nerve to go full anti-Semite, talking about going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. You see what happened? He went so far down the white elite rabbit hole that he started parroting their conspiracy theories. And suddenly, all those white Republicans who were using him as their token black friend dropped him like a hot potato. But here's what really pisses me off about Kanye. He had everything: platform, influence, money, respect. He could have used his voice to speak truth to power. Instead, he used it to give white racists exactly what they wanted: a black man saying that black oppression is our own fault. Kanye represents the puppet politician at its most pathetic. Someone so desperate for white acceptance that they'll say anything, believe anything, do anything to get that approval. And when the approval runs out, they're left with nothing but the damage they've done to their own people. Tim Scott ran for president on the platform that America is not a racist country, while living in a country where black people are killed by police at 3 times the rate of white people. This man said welfare was worse for black people than slavery. He compared government assistance to the kidnapping.
How crazy that is, even say welfare, something that's actually a program that can help somebody, especially if they're down, especially if it's a single mother or a family that they just ain't making enough money. The jobs economy might be fucked up. That was worse than slavery, where niggas didn't have no freedom. They were beating the shit out of you, raping you, and all that shit. Like, nigga, when Coon say Coon shit, that's why I be sitting. These black Republicans, bro. I'm like, bro, it's something wrong with you. It's clear. It's day that something is fucking wrong with you. And people be sitting around talking, oh no, they just think, they think for themselves. No, no, the fuck they ain't.
And death of millions of African people. But here's what makes the puppet politicians so insidious. They don't just speak to white people. They speak to confused black people too. They tell working class black folks that their struggles are their own fault. They tell black women that feminism is their enemy. They tell black men that white racism is actually black people's fault. This is the puppet politician's function: to be the ventriloquist dummy for white racism. They don't just harm us through silence, like the assimilationist. They actively recruit others to harm us. They give white America moral permission to continue oppressing us while convincing some of us that oppression is actually freedom. The puppet politician is the most dangerous because they have power, platform, and purpose. They're not confused like the assimilationist or broken like the house slave. They're strategic. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're getting paid well to do it. But here's the thing that really gets me. Sometimes the most dangerous betrayal comes from people who genuinely think they're helping us. Level 4, the tragic compromiser. Meet Booker T. Washington.
Now, hold on. Let me see. What did he title it? The tragic compromiser. Okay, let's see this right here. Let's see this level right here. I'm actually very interested in this level.
The tragic compromiser. Meet Booker T. Washington, the man who told black people to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, while white folks were cutting the straps. Now, before y'all come for me in the comments, I get it. Booker T. lived in a different time. Jim Crow was in full swing. Lynching was a weekend hobby for white folks, and this man was trying to keep us alive. But when he gave that Atlanta Compromise speech in 1895, telling black people to focus on vocational training instead of demanding civil rights, he gave white racists exactly what they wanted: our permission to wait. Cast down your bucket where you are, he said. Accept segregation. Focus on economic development, not political rights. Prove you deserve equality instead of demanding what's already yours. Sound familiar? That's respectability politics, and it's still killing us today. Washington believed that if black people just worked hard enough, were respectable enough, contributed enough to the economy, white people would eventually accept us as equals. He was wrong, dead wrong. All his compromising did was give white racists moral cover to continue oppressing us while pointing to his words as proof that even we agreed with their system. While Washington was teaching black people to be patient, white folks were lynching us at record rates. While he was promoting vocational training, they were burning down Black Wall Street. While he was preaching accommodation, they were passing laws to strip us of the vote. His strategy of appeasement didn't stop the terror. It enabled it. But here's what makes this tragic. Washington genuinely loved Black people. He built Tuskegee Institute, educated thousands of our people, and fought for economic advancement.
Y'all, that campus is still there. I had to do some work on it at my last job. It's something to see. It is something to see. If you ever come down to Alabama, you'll get to see it.
His intentions were pure, but good intentions paved with...
Oh, but make sure you got some gas before you get there, though, because you got to go down some back roads to get to that bitch.
Black bodies still lead to hell. Today's respectable compromisers follow the same playbook. They tell us to vote our way out of oppression, to work within systems designed to destroy us, to be twice as good for half as much. They preach the politics of respectability while our people are killed in broad daylight. You know them. The leaders who say we need to build bridges with people who want to build walls around us. The preachers who tell us to turn the other cheek while bullets are flying. They mean well, but good intentions don't stop police bullets. They mean well, but patience doesn't.
Sorry to interrupt,
Man,
but this is important.
Yeah, you interrupted like a motherfucker,
murdered
boy.
My sweet little Daniel.
Like shit.
Pay rent. They mean well, but respectability doesn't resurrect the dead. Here's what makes this the most tragic level. These people genuinely love us. They're not seeking white approval like the others. They're trying to protect us, but their fear makes them accept crumbs and call it progress. They tell us to wait for the right time, the right candidate, the right moment. Meanwhile, we're dying in the streets, in prisons, in poverty. How long are we supposed to wait for freedom? How long are we supposed to prove we deserve what's already ours? The respectable compromiser isn't evil. They're just scared. Scared of white backlash. Scared of losing what little progress we've made. Scared that if we push too hard, too fast, white people will take everything away. But here's what they don't understand. White people never gave us anything out of kindness. Every right we have, we fought for.
That part right there. That part right there is the biggest part. Like, and I know a lot of them people that talk like that. And they normally seem to be older, on the older side. Now, we getting some of these newer, younger ones that, we got the internet, so you can kind of see more people. Everybody got a voice now. But it's like, shit. Normally, it was like the older dudes and well-intentioned, but it'd be like, dude, what you talking about ain't gonna work for us, bro. Like, it'd be the younger kids. They tell me these young kids just don't know. It's like, nah, bro, that your approach is not the way that it's gonna work. You trying to fucking haggle with a motherfucker who said, motherfucker, I ain't selling shit. Like, what are you talking about?
Every law that protects us, we bled for. Every step forward, we took by force, not by asking nicely. The compromiser believes in the myth of gradual progress, the lie that justice delayed is not justice denied. They think racism will fade away if we just give it enough time, enough patience, enough good behavior. But racism...
And these motherfuckers just gonna keep teaching their kids. Because why do you see little kids in elementary school saying nigga and all this shit? They learn that shit at home. They were taught that shit. Racism ain't gonna die down until motherfuckers stop teaching it. But these motherfuckers that, the so-called leaders, the ones who be at the front talking all the time, want to sit and wait.
Isn't a misunderstanding. It's a system. And systems don't reform themselves out of the goodness of their hearts. They change when they're forced to change. Here's what connects all four levels. They all serve the same master. Whether it's through active betrayal, silent complicity, political puppetry, or respectability politics, they all keep white racism alive. The house slave convinces white folks they're good masters. The assimilationist convinces us we can escape. The puppet politician gives racism a black face. And the respectable compromiser tells us to be patient with our own oppression. But here's what they don't want you to know. Every single one of these archetypes exists because white racism needs them. They're not aberrations. They're features of the system. The house slave provides psychological cover. See, even they like being enslaved. The assimilationist provides false hope. If you just try hard enough, you can make it too. The puppet politician provides political cover. It's not racism when a black person says it. And the compromiser provides moral cover. Even their own leaders say they should wait. Together, these four types create a complete ecosystem of black subjugation. They handle different aspects of the psychological, political, and social work needed to maintain white dominance. But here's the real tragedy. Many of these people could have been freedom fighters. The House's intelligence could have been used to organize resistance. The assimilationist platform could have been used to advocate for justice. The puppet politicians' power could have been used to advance our interests. The compromisers' love could have been channeled into revolutionary action. Instead, white racism captured their talents and turned them against us. That's the real genius of this system. It doesn't just oppress us with external force, it recruits us to oppress ourselves. So the next time you see a black person tap dancing for white approval, ask yourself, which level are they on? Because until we recognize these patterns, until we call out these sellouts, until we stop making excuses for people who harm us in the name of helping us, we'll never be free. Drop a comment and tell me, which type...
And he 100% correct about that shit. We'll never get to that point because, like, motherfucker, you allowing this shit, bro. You allowing this shit. But we need to fucking, we need to get on it, man. We need to get on it. Because I remember when we were talking about the elections last time when, Trump was running against Kamala. We were having conversations over here about that shit. And, like, we ain't holding nothing back. I know, at least on my side, ain't holding nothing back about either candidate. But I told you, if it came down to it, bitch, I'd vote for Kamala. Like, straight up. And motherfuckers were talking mad shit, bro. I had so many conversations during that last election about motherfuckers Kamala or Trump and shit. And it's like, man, for the motherfuckers that went over there and voted for this, I'm like, dude, look at what the fuck is going on right now. They done repealed this goddamn shit in the Voting Rights Act. So now they about to fucking be racist as hell when it comes to voting. Like, good luck, motherfuckers. You got, like, most people gonna have to move to a blue state. Because, like, nigga, these maps ain't finna get redrawn unless motherfucker wins some elections. So motherfucker better have to win a whole lot of elections. They about to lock these states up. It's gonna be literally a gridlock throughout America. That blue state, red state, blue state, red state. Like, there's gonna be a lock, and you're gonna see that clear divide. The South is gonna be all red. Ain't gonna be no conversation in it. Florida used to be like blue, then it went purple. Now that bitch red. They gonna lock that fucking shit up. Ain't nobody getting elected around that motherfucker unless you from either party. And that ain't gonna be good for a lot of us in America because, bro, all that's gonna do is just push us further towards another civil war. And that's where it look like it's headed. But listen to what old buddy said at the end, man. Look, we gotta lock in. All of us together gotta lock in. Fuck all them coon ass motherfuckers. Call their ass out when they start talking, man. All these people that talk about not pushing forward, just like you putting your head down. Like, sometimes you gotta put your head down, but sometimes you gotta push for something. Like, there's a time and a place for fucking everything. If y'all know what I'm saying. There's a time and a place for everything. There's a time to be passive, and there's a time to actually fucking fight for something. And right now, it seems like we in a time where we need to start fighting for shit. Because they never seem to leave us out, man. They started off like, we gonna fuck with the Hispanics, gonna round them up with ICE. But at the same time, they were firing a whole bunch of black people out of the federal government and shit. So, we were still a part of it, but we wanted to focus. This shit right here was a direct shot at us. A direct shot. Man, we might have to go back over that Project 2025 because, motherfuckers told us they would never do that. They ain't doing that. Then look, we can go down the line and see which ones they done checked off so far because they've been working. But look, y'all, that's the end of the show because I got to eat something. I ain't finna stay up all goddamn night. But make sure y'all, channels down below, like, subscribe, share, turn notifications on, all that in the bag of chips. We might be back here tomorrow. I'm not sure. But we'll see. But I appreciate all y'all. We catch y'all motherfuckers in the next one as always, man.